Okay, here we go. In theory, at least. Anybody watching the recording afterwards, as always, you can probably skip the first maybe 3 minutes or so. Oh, we're right here. Well, that makes it easier. Mute myself. We go over here. Then we have to go back out. Go over here. Activate. Activate the monetization. And I'm still going to say probably will get turned off, even though the algorithm has really been slacking. It has not hit me for any of the last few things. Sorry for the absence for a week. I got distracted, I guess you could say. I actually wanted to spend time working on some of my writing stuff, even though that is not what people want, obviously. But I kind of wanted to finally actually get to write some new stuff, so that's what I did for a little bit. But now we're back, and just let me get everything up and running. Go over to Google Earth, everybody's favorite uncooperative site. Stop showing the stupid stopwatch thing. Stop showing anything on the site. Stop. Go away. Go away. Stop. Go away. Click on the thing that I'm clicking on, please. Thank you. There we go. So, quite a lot of stuff happened. Everybody is kind of losing their minds. Most of it's bad, some of it's good. Some of it seems pretty calculated, and you know, can't really see anybody doing some certain things without certain end goals, because the net results of some stuff would be really obvious. But maybe everybody is just stupid. I'm always willing to offer that chance up. Uh, Let me take a sip of water before I start doing anything. And I started up the channel membership thing on over on YouTube. So that is open because I remember a while back, like a year or two ago, there were some specific people I remember who said they specifically just don't like Patreon for some reason. So the YouTube membership thing for any given channel is effectively the same thing as Patreon, but it's via YouTube instead of via Patreon. In case anybody really specifically just doesn't like Patreon for some reason. And I based those tiers off of power sources as opposed to the Patreon ones, which are based off of level of oil exporter. So on the YouTube membership ones, there's wind farms, coal plants, and then nuclear power plants. All right, so to start off with, since we mentioned nukes, the US, via Trump, who can just unilaterally do whatever now and nobody cares, is apparently going to start switching sides in the global order because he really, really likes his gay dates with he's shutting down a base in Greece. Not too big of one. It's kind of on the lower end of what you could easily get away with without really turning the Pentagon against you too much. And why is it switching over to battery power? You are plugged in. Please act like you are plugged in, laptop. Thank you. And is apparently removing uh, much of its allies or former allies at this point from its nuclear umbrella. So, apart from Macron over in France, over here you got Macron, who I don't like a lot of his like regular politics stuff, but militarily now over like the last few years, it's kind of growing on me because he's actually suddenly out of all of the leaders of bigger European countries, at least, suddenly grown a spine and is actually starting his frequency of Giga Chad moments is starting to drastically increase. Like, yeah, the one bump there where he like actually threatened Putin with nukes in the beginning, and then yeah, like one here, and now all of a sudden he's just like doing an asymptote curve, like straight for the sky. So France is now going to be umbrellaing everybody. Although he insists France will be the one actually like making decisions if that were ever to come to something. But that's not the point of it. The point is that everybody is under someone's like umbrella, which the point of which is to uh, keep any crossings from happening. And also, as has been suspected, in fact, our favorite our favorite what I call him our favorite check hound boy Jakub Yanowski over there was one of the ones who suggested this before it sparked in my head was that those who can, whether via, although France and the UK insist this isn't going to happen, whether via uh, direct assistance or just informational assistance with them, the parties involved, like doing all the actual work themselves and footing the bill. Uh, a lot of people who have not had nukes are now going to, they're going to get nukes. And I don't mean like they're going to be gifted nukes. I mean, they're going to develop nukes. Again, whether they're like given one example warhead to work off of, and then rapidly within a few months, most of these countries would be able to make their own, or whether they're just given the information and like blueprint type stuff. Either way, it would be the same end result. But quite a few parties who can afford to and want them are going to be getting nukes now. Poland is absolutely going to get nukes. No one should even be questioning this. In light of all recent developments, Poland is absolutely going to be seeking nukes. Turkey down there, not because of the US and Russia stuff, just in general, Turkey was already, uh, no one with a brain was really going to like try to say that they were never really pursuing getting nuclear weapons of their own. They were already going to be doing that, but now they're most certainly going to be doing that. And to hopefully no one's surprise, uh, Ukraine is absolutely going to seek them out now after making the mistake of giving them up once. Whether anyone, again, directly helps with that, probably not, because the UK and France still don't have enough of a spine to do anything to that scale yet. But once Poland has their hands on something, which they are absolutely going to go forward with, I really would put the higher money on Poland will absolutely just start passing stuff off. And even without them, Ukraine could, over a longer term, actually like do it again themselves. But they are not at an immediate starting place where it would be as effectively easy. So that's the thing that is going to happen. And not just over there, but in light of those developments, even though they're not related to, they're not involved with Ukraine and NATO and Russia. Just seeing the result of that, South Korea is gonna pursue getting nukes, and they will rather easily be able to do so. And so will Taiwan, who is beyond a shadow of a doubt now probably going to pursue getting nukes. And not connected to that, they were already working on theirs, but Iran, at this point, probably secretly already has like a couple, although like North Korea at the very start back in the 90s, they're probably just like Hiroshima atom bomb scale stuff. But I'm not clicking on the watch. So that is stuff that's happening. We're going to go back up there in a minute. But also, for the moment, you thought all of this nonsense all over here, you thought this was done? Well, think again. It never ends. There is no getting off the wild ride. It doesn't stop. So, Israel is continuing their clockwise rotation of invasions, we're going to call it. So, started with Gaza, obviously, eventually turned into carpet bombing and just erasure. And now, the intent to quote unquote relocate the people of Gaza elsewhere. Oh, speaking of which, oops, sorry, I have to switch to the arrow to zoom out. So the new plan put forth by Trump and Israel is they're going to relocate the people of Gaza to Libya, even commenting almost word for word that Libya seems like a beautiful place. And the government of Libya is, of course, just going to, just go along with this question mark, I guess, in their heads. So after the Gaza stuff, obviously, we then had the South Lebanon invasion. And then we started having stuff, sporadic stuff all over the West Bank. Now, Israel has just flat out uh, spoken the truth that they're going to invade Syria, and they're going to go up to relatively this point here, roughly. So they were already in here in the Golan Heights. Then this jagged line here that I'm now painting over is their like new extended push that they did into Syria earlier. But now apparently they're just going to go all in, although they're not. Supposedly, they're not going to try to overextend themselves, and they're just going to do a southwestern conquest and occupation there. So, that's happening or will be happening soon. Are they going to turn on Jordan, who's actually been a close ally of theirs for a long time now? They're going to turn on Jordan next and invade Jordan for insert reason here. And then after that, like, actually do a Sinai Peninsula invasion again at some point. Who knows? I think realistically, the big Syria push, I'd say if there is a rationale behind it, it's probably to try to like really, really press things with Iran and try to like actually trigger Iran to do a like full blown mega 1,000 ballistic missile barrage attack. So that the IDF can then have like a final a final manufactured consent public pretext to do like a massive all out annihilatory air campaign across western Iran. So I would assume that's probably the aim behind it, unless, as I kind of put in the title, everyone's just losing their minds and everybody's doing whatever because whatever. that very well might be what's going on globally at this point, because we've sort of departed from the era of like reason. Let me check chat. Uh, fully said he's not fully siding with Ukraine. He's trying to side with Russia without just flat out siding with Russia, except those who sort of do the public speaking for him afterwards are kind of equally as inept and sort of just say that the administration is siding with Russia even after in the like initial press conferences trying to frame it as if that's not what's happening. Now, I'll do a benefit of the doubt clause here. If this is not what it actually looks like, and if there is uh, and if what I'd prefer to believe, like there's an actual U.S. sort of military intelligence apparatus that's actually in control of things and doing decision making, and Trump is acting on puppet strings, then in that unlikely but would be much better scenario, I would say the purpose of all of the anti-Ukrainian theatrics that and Russian pandering that Trump is doing, if there's an actual pro-Ukraine reason behind that, it would probably be bait, like trying to lull Russia into thinking the U.S. is like on its side now and trying to get them to double down again for like the 50th time. Not that much is really required to do that because it doesn't matter how much the decision blows back in their face. Moscow always doubles down on everything. And they're at, kind of a thin margin now where they're effectively out of any tanks that were made post 1960 something. They're going to be out of IFVs and AFVs soon. They have already been using donkeys to like pull stuff around behind the front lines. And recently, their some of their infantry brigades have been literally riding horses to the front lines. So, plus the whole oil and gas issues and behind the scenes economic stuff. Uh, if there is actual intelligence that's sort of behind current U.S. decision making at this point, and is still going for what the expected aims would be, then all of the Trump theatrics would probably be some kind of bait in a best case scenario, since Russia has brought itself that close to the effectively inevitable breaking point that this would probably be to try to goad them into like finally like really crippling, quadrupling down on this, and then sort of back off and not try to stop anything, and then just let them eventually slip on the ice. But that would be like a benefit of the doubt scenario, and assuming that there's like adults in the room over in DC that are actually still in control of something. Now, in regards to everything going on over here, the pattern continues as normal. Russia continues with nightly Shahid drone strikes, all of which have been targeting absolutely nothing of military importance: apartment buildings, intersections, traffic lights, random farm fields. They did one strike with one cruise missile somewhere over here, I believe, that actually struck a military target for the first time in many, many months. But other than that, the pattern of just generic terror bombing continues. And the thing is, terror bombing the enemy into submission. Russia, that only really works when your enemy is small and the entire population of the enemy is like in one city, like in Grozny, or in Syria's case, uh, the entire population, the majority of it, of the resistance was effectively just in Aleppo, and Russia was leveling Aleppo constantly. But Chechnya only gave up in one of those cases, and Syria never gave up. So even in that like best case scenario for using terror bombing as a tactic, it still a lot of the time won't work anyways. Uh, Terror bombing on a massive enemy, one who especially has a large population across many different urban centers, it's not really going to work out, especially if it's as drunken and uncoordinated as Russia's usual Shahid drone efforts are. And for the past, we're up to 3 months now since Ukraine reached drone production parity with Russia. Ukraine has been able to launch nightly drone strikes into Russia, with the difference, of course, being that Ukraine is attacking rather meaningful targets as opposed to traffic lights and random playgrounds. So recently, going down quite a recent list, we had a oil storage depot with several large oil storage tanks struck in Rostov. Near that, we had a petrochemical processing plant, one or the place where after a refinery refines the basic components out of oil, they will then go to a petrochemical plant if you intend to make like higher end products out of them, like plastics and cleaning products, medicine, or in this case, military explosive compounds. A petrochemical processing plant was struck. I believe those were, oops, sorry, no, I have to switch back to the mouse. Those were, I think that was at the end of February, and then we have to work forward from there. Other than that, there's just the generic, day by day videos that are there for anyone to see of constant, mindless bonsai infantry charges getting mowed down and stuff. Where's the okay, that's a little too far back. This was one in Crimea, down here. So refinery, smaller one, but a refinery nonetheless was struck in Crimea also. All right, which ones were the other ones? That was destruction of a TOS rocket launcher. They're starting a pincer maneuver, cutting off this Russian frontline thrust here. Ufa, yes, Ufa. Over here in Bashkortostan or Bashkiri. Oops, sorry. Yeah, this one here does the little tornado hook wraparound near Chelyabinsk there. So in Bashkortostan, one of the largest refineries in Russia was struck and partially put out of commission for the time being, just not last night, but the night before. And then, oh, yeah, some of the random good news that actually did happen recently. First private enterprise moon landing happened via Firefly Aerospace, just a small little robotic lander. That is okay. That was the one in Rostov, the petrochemical plant in Rostov. Yeah, that's the oil depot. Okay, what were the others? Ryazan. Ryazan was, I think, a lot earlier. That was around last week when I should have streamed, but didn't. Because I got selfish and actually wanted to like focus on my writing a little bit. Here's another Russian convoy charge annihilation. More cringe, awkward improv with like toothpicks and wooden planks attaching a naval gun to the back of a ancient supply truck as some kind of like improvised IFV, AFV. There it is. Yeah, that's a nice one there. That was the Ryazan one, which had been hit previously 2 or 3 times. So this it was hit again. This is either the third or fourth time. So say either X3 or 4, and the this is triple tapping or quadruple tapping the target, which is A, obviously doing additional damage on top of slowing down the repair time from the first damage, and is kind of destroying the repair equipment and killing repair crews, which is, gradually building up sentiment that has actually started to kind of emerge already. This is the best skull and crossbones thing I'm going to get you. Kind of building up sentiment in the industry already that working as like, oil refinery or oil infrastructure repair personnel in the Russian oil industry is sort of a death sentence. If, during the repair process, the locations keep getting drone struck again. So that's leading up to a shortage, which has already been seen. Stop slowing down. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. Thank you. As the various oil and gas entities within Russia, like in many other regards, in many other places, have had to start pay upping to convince people to not go into unexplained or motivation unknown early retirements, for undeterminable reasons. These personnel are deciding to leave their jobs, for that no one can figure out why. It's definitely not the high likelihood of getting killed while repairing a refinery during a drone strike. It's not that, but for some reason, a lot of them are starting to just punch out. No one can figure it out, though. So that was the Ryazan one. And also in Krasnodar and in, where was in Dagestan, oil pipeline pumping stations were hit and forced to at least partially shut. So within any country, you have oil pipeline networks that go to or from either fields or locations, refineries, cities. They transport oil to export terminals. They do all kinds of stuff, what have you. And along each of the way, you'll have like, a pumping station that maintains the pressure and the flow so that the oil keeps moving. And obviously, if you start taking those out, you can't really move the oil, at least not in the same quantities. And they'd already hit one of these around here near Astrakhan, and into there they hit one as well. So the actual internal Russian oil pipeline network is starting to get its downturn in terms of its like capabilities to actually move stuff around. And it'll basically go like a sort of a log curve, as in the first one, if you have a straight line up here representing like the usual capability. The first one doesn't really do too much. It takes a bit off. Second one, third, fourth, fifth, it starts like turning down pretty fast. Because if it's just one offline somewhere, then the other stations, other pipeline directions or networks, they can compensate for that for the most part. But when you start, often this one and that one and that one and that one up there, then you're gonna start tipping down this curve, which is what's happening. Haven't been able to get the most recent numbers just yet, but as of around the 20th or sometime between the 15th and the 20th of last month, the damage just from the Tver pumping station and the Astrakhan one going out, along with the inability to use one of the main export terminals up north near St. Petersburg there, had already caused Russia to have to make an abrupt further downgrade from 8.97 down to 8.88 million barrels per day, all of which is down from them being close to 11 million before invading Ukraine. So these will stack on additionally, and I'll have to check their monthly update numbers soon and work through backwards math with that, because officially they don't officially publish their like production and other numbers and stuff anymore. So to get those, I have to look at like the OPEC data, since they include a lot of Russia's stuff. Look at the various like oil carrier and tanker companies' data, since they still report what they're carrying and where from. Look at and tally how much like refinery and processing capacity is offline. Any direct information, which is rare but still comes sometimes, any direct information about like the latest field shut-ins up in primarily Siberia. So they haven't actually cut off the information. All they did is kind of made it like tediously difficult to go through, which is still evil in the end. But that's like the one instance where it's not something completely unique to Russia. Spit. Stop. If you could get on your government's case about this, that would be awesome. Brazil does this too, where in Brazil's case, they'll have random episodes, like psychotic episodic breaks, where they'll go for like a year or 6 months without like officially publishing their data anymore, not because they've stopped it as a matter of policy, but just because of incompetence. They just somehow stop doing it. And that leaves me, having to, just like with Russia, do a bunch of math and a bunch of like backflips and everything. Let's throw a quadratic equation symbol in there for, the fun of it. So Brazil does this issue too, with even more things. Brazil will just suddenly stop updating like any of their data. They just ended a 8-month episode of not updating their electricity demand data. They finally just in February started updating it again, but they still haven't updated their oil demand data though. So, Brazil, if you could actually get your head together and like do your job, like having an incomplete data set. That's the OCD coming out there. I really don't like my incomplete data sets. Let's see. Who do I have to block or ban? Blah blah blah. Nobody. It's just Mo. Now, whether whether this is acting or not, whether this is like the 10% chance benefit of the doubt case, this is all theatrics. Uh, Either way, the one of the end results has been that Europe is militarily, as I phrased it in the description, is militarily actually like getting out of bed, is getting up off the couch. Uh, you know, France here is actually remembering for the first time in a long while, hey, I was a superpower once, and they kind of could fill a large military power role again, not really at superpower scale, but they're pretty high up on the list. The UK is kind of lower, especially with the whole self deindustrialization thing they've been doing for the last like 40 years. But the UK's kind of woken up too and remembered, hey, I used to matter on the global stage. Maybe that would be nice again. Uh, Spain can't really come back. Italy is strong, but they can't really come back. Not to like past scales, at least. But they can be stronger than they currently are, and that's the point. Regardless of any of this, Poland was already supercharging itself. That had been happening since like the late 2010s. Uh, Poland Poland was already all in on going like full Giga Chad mode. And for the first time, maybe, it looks like Germany might actually stop feeling uh, guilt sorry for itself, stop crying in a corner in the fetal position and crying and complaining about how I was a bad boy, I was a bad boy. Maybe, maybe, they've claimed this. I'm waiting to see if they actually do it. They might actually like return to having a military again. We'll see. They're the one I would put the most doubt on. But everybody else is like actually gonna come back swinging. Poland was already like swinging away anyways. But in terms of like actual power capability, France has the most and will have the most. Sweden is tougher than they look and is kind of stepping up a bit. Finland is the secret quiet one in the back of the room who nobody suspects, who is really, really more powerful than people think they are. But Europe has collectively come together recently at their conference, and I'm assuming they picked 300 billion because that's the number Trump goes back to the most. Although he flops around all the time, he can't even keep the lie straight. Sometimes it's 500 billion, sometimes it's 350, sometimes it's 300, sometimes it's 150, sometimes it's 250. Sometimes he actually says the correct number, which is 95. So, no idea. Can't keep the lie straight about how much the U.S. has spent in military spending to aid Ukraine, which his usual phrasing is that Ukraine stole the money, like it was, in a briefcase in the embassy or something, and they like stole it out of the briefcase. No, that was money that we spent to build stuff. Like we spent that money in house in the U.S. So that was, a decision of the U.S. government that wasn't like this is again with people. This is kind of like, but even worse than people not understanding how the 2003 Iraq War was about oil. Like the usual phrasing from Americans is that we went there to quote unquote get the oil, as if again the the oil was like money in a briefcase and we had to like break into a specific room in Baghdad to grab the briefcase like it's Call of Duty. No, it was about oil, but the means, was kind of about dethroning Saddam so that he would stop being crazy and so that we could get the external oil industries in country to ramp up Iraq's oil production to the levels that it's actually capable of, as opposed to the like 1, maybe 2, sometimes million barrels per day that it had previously been producing because of constantly getting stuff damaged in various wars that Saddam would randomly start, including one against the Kurds in-house. Morally right or wrong isn't the the like angle that I'm getting at with that. I'm just saying that is what that was, and that is the like how and why. But people are really the majority of people are really low IQ and seem to only understand like the most basic, simple-minded phrasing of things. So I'm assuming because 300 is the one that he runs with about, being quote unquote stolen from the US the most. I'm guessing that's why uh, the EU nations, basically everyone plus Canada, basically everyone in NATO except the US, I'm guessing that's why they agreed on 300 billion as their collective decision on what they're going to pour in to defense spending in the very immediate, like starting right now future, the huge portion of which will be related to producing things to send to Ukraine and to potentially use in EU-led, like France, Germany, Poland, UK, Italy, uh, air denial missions over Ukraine. So Europe has militarily actually gotten up off the couch finally after a long, long time. France and the UK had still been like reasonable military powers for a while, up until like the 90s. Actually, yeah, kind of. It all comes back to that, isn't it? It really was the fall of the USSR that suddenly made everyone just like go take a nap. So now, after 30 years, France and the UK are coming back. Obviously, uh, Poland was already bulking up and roiding out, and now everyone else is going to be stepping up to what part they can. And although Turkey is not interested in militarily participating in anything like giving stuff to Ukraine or being part of any like air denial mission in the future, they are constantly signing more and more business contracts, construction deals, energy stuff, and everything with the government in Kiev. And they have really just kind of cut themselves from Russia almost. So, as the one primary, like, anti NATO member who was usually a lot closer buddies with Russia, for Turkey to, like, still be constantly doing this pivot, that should be like a bit of a doubt alleviator here that they sort of see the like writing on the wall and it's not in this one's favor. Now, elsewhere, we have quite a bit of other news. So, or at least some fair bit of news. I don't remember if I remembered to write everything. I don't remember if I remembered. Fascinating. So, we got this coming up soon. Either this year, next year, or in 2027. 2027 is the latest one they can possibly do it. After that, it would effectively be a dead end. It's already a dead end, but if they did it like this year or next year or in 2027, China would still have like maybe a 5% chance of succeeding at it. So we've seen already over the last few months that different port cities along the coast adjacent to Taiwan. China has been rapidly constructing and just cranking out by the dozen every like week or other week these smaller, rapid, like high speed amphibious transports that could only really carry like one, maybe two vehicles in them. Basically, really small but high speed vehicle ferries. So they've started cranking those out. And over the past few years, they have done constant, ante upping every time exercises all around Taiwan, practicing naval positioning, doing a lot of, especially a lot of flybys, a lot of sorties that come very close to the island, sometimes as big as 140, 150 plus aircraft in a single day, which is part of doing terrain recognition because a lot of like GPS stuff is going to be jammed by both sides, electronic warfare, when this happens. So they're getting as many pilots as visually used to the Taiwan coastline there as they can so that they'll be able to like visually find where they're supposed to go, where they're supposed to drop their munitions. So they, over just the last month, actually, hold on, I believe, yeah, we had an overlay of that. Oh, no, that was much more recent update. It should be up here, up here, up here, up here, up here. There we go. Yeah, so uh, from the January numbers to the February numbers in terms of aircraft sorties flying around the island from China, it was a jump up of 40% in a single month. So if they keep this up and they go month after month doing this and try to keep like a constant buzz effect going this year, I will fall back again onto a extreme likelihood that they are going to go for it this year. It has to be in autumn, it has to be in fall, whatever year they do it, because that's when the waters in the Taiwan Strait are the calmest. And it would only take 6 hours in fall to cross the strait, as opposed to 10, maybe 11 or 12 hours in most other times of the year. So the real indicator for this year or for any year of whether it is coming will be months ahead of time. Sometime in the summer, you will unavoidably, no matter how quietly they try to do it, start seeing the massive movement of stuff to locations along the coastline. As we saw in past years, they did practice runs of this where they moved like hundreds of thousands of personnel and tens of thousands of different combat vehicles up to different cities and ports along the coast just to practice doing so, to like, test out the logistics and see how many issues they had and how quickly they were able to do it. Doing an initial stress test years, several times each year before doing the actual thing, obviously. So you will see that starting several months ahead of time. They would have to start uh, building up stuff like sometime during the summer. So if you would go all summer and into like September and like nothing of that sort is happening, then that means they're skipping over and not going for this year. But if they keep going up with the buzzing, if they go up like 40% extra each month for another few months, that might be a heavy indicator that it is indeed coming this year because that would be uh, on a kind of effort to try to normalize this more and more and do what they can, although it won't actually work, to lull the Taiwanese military into thinking that they're not actually going to do anything. But it's not really going to work out because literally everyone on Earth knows that this is coming. Like no one, there is no one outside of people that Beijing imagines exist who believe their statements. Outside of those imaginary people, there's no one who like legitimately believes that this is not going to happen. Even like even tankies and like pro CCP people on Twitter and stuff, you know that this is going to happen. Just in favor of it, but the thing in favor of Beijing for them to do is to try to like go around asserting that it's ridiculous and it's not going to happen. Over here, let me check chat again just to see. Nope. Is it different on YouTube at all? No. Okay. So over here, you remember Venezuela? Venezuela had the, you know, collapse in their oil production when the country collapsed. And because of Chevron aiding them, they gradually got their production back up to 1 million barrels per day recently. Well, as one of Trump's newest things, he has barred Chevron from continuing to restore Venezuela's oil production. So, guess what Venezuela's oil production is about to do now? They're going back down to rock bottom. So, that's going to take probably about 500,000 barrels per day off the market abruptly. That's probably, again, this is like benefit of the doubt, assuming there's a strategic purpose behind this, other than just being anti-Venezuela, which has been the U.S. position of literally every president. But strategically, that might be to try to not make oil prices fall too much, since they're already going down because of serious concerns about the U.S. economy under Trump, who has already done pretty decent damage. And why do you flip around? I'm trying to rotate you, not flip you. The Chinese economy, which has gone flat for the last like 4 years now, and is part of the reason why their oil demand has probably peaked at 17 million barrels per day. And OPEC now officially ending their production cuts as of the end of this month. Although Saudi Arabia will still be continuing theirs. They already said they're going to continue holding their production down indefinitely because, they kind of have to for reasons that I've explained too many times at this point. But everybody else is done. So the Venezuela thing might be like, if there is a strategic actual reason behind that, it might be to try to make some oil output drop from the market just a little bit to try to counter all of the other negative sentiment and thus not let oil prices drop too far. He's going to make the oil companies drill, baby drill, and U.S. oil production is going to go, quote unquote, to the moon or whatever, even though the oil companies themselves multiple times said that that's not going to happen because, this is private enterprise. Which they are now for the moment, until something else happens that maybe causes the opposite, they wouldn't be profiting. Because for the better shale, like down in the Permian, the profit margin line is around like 65. For the others, the ones that are sort of running thin, like Eagle Ford, Niobrara, Anadarko, theirs is closer to 70 itself. And that's to keep going with what's already been done, which will only go downward because that's how shale works. To go for other stuff that has not actually been drilled yet, what hasn't been touched has been untouched for a reason. That's because it's either deeper or it's deeper and in less fracturable rock, like it's in more actual solid rock layers, which have the stuff that hasn't been touched has like a bottom line break even price of around 85. So if the oil companies were actually going to go after what is remaining, what they have not touched in terms of areas of the shale formations, which do not hold as much as the areas that they have already gone through, then oil would have to like consistently stay above $85. And that's not the situation as of the present moment. So, like I said, every the U.S. increases for the future are coming from Gulf of Mexico projects. Primarily, there are two large ones. Each one is about like 120,000 barrels per day that will, as you see the US production gradually go down like this, you'll see sudden jumps up when one of those fields starts, and then like resume gradual decline, sudden jump up when one of those fields starts, resume gradual decline that will continue getting steeper because that's what shale does as it declines. Stop, stop, thank you. Up on the north slope there. So that is all that really remains. The shale is what actually made U.S. oil production do the super upward jump. But we've run the course of that. We had the COVID crash and then the recovery from that. And now U.S. oil production is doing this basically. It's kind of just wobbling around. It got up to 13.6. And now it's down to a bit below 13.5. And when one of these two bigger fields comes online. One is coming online this year, and one is coming online, I think, at the very start of next year. Each one of those should bump it up suddenly by like 100 or a bit above 100,000 barrels per day, plus a few sporadic projects back up home, and one project that is about 80,000 barrels per day. So U.S. oil production will still go back up higher than its previous high points 3 or 4 months ago at 13.62. Now it's down at right around 13.5. It will still, because of the way the math works out for those and the shale declination rates and the stuff from back up home, it should work out to, as I kind of put forward as the expectation for a number of years, should peak with like the highest end number ending up in the upper 13s, like a bit short of 14. So probably something like maybe 13.8. And actually, for the first time, the EIA has actually posted stuff agreeing with me. That was the first time they've done that in quite a while. Previously, they had this like ridiculous, they posted this ridiculous thing that literally showed U.S. oil production remaining at 13 million barrels per day all the way until 2050 because of, I don't know, special wizard magic or something. All right. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. I'm probably forgetting quite a number of things, as I always do, but I can't immediately recall them, whatever they were. All right, so let me check, see if anybody else said anything. We got one other speaking person who showed up at least. And don't worry about Josh. Josh is not here because Josh is gaming professionally in Marvel Rivals. Unfortunately, not like professionally, as in he's not getting paid, but he is apparently going to be in like legitimate tournaments. That is what I had forgotten. A few things down here. More discoveries were made offshore of Namibia. Again, everything has been made so far around this area off the southwest. Not too much of a bigger thing. Everything that's been discovered offshore of Namibia thus far stacks up to, if it all comes online on time as expected, between 2029 and 2032, it would have Namibia previously at like the start of 2032 around 900,000 barrels per day. With the addition of this new field that was discovered and the numbers that it is believed to have as of the moment, I think they said maybe 200,000 barrels per day would be its jumpstart production level, maybe a bit less. So that is enough if it fits into the same timeline, probably, which would probably come online during 2032. That would be enough so far to see Namibia by 2032 up to somewhere between 1 and 1.1 million barrels per day. As well as also South Africa, everybody's favorite completely functional country. So we know South Africa's electrical grid is constantly on the verge of just imploding on itself. Also, their rail network is constantly failing because people are stealing the electronics, the computer controls from like the switchboards so that they can, scrap them and sell the precious metals on the black market. Their port infrastructure is starting to break down as well. Also, their water distribution network is not really working all that well, especially in the northern part of the country there. So, in light of all this, things are not looking great. Their steel production industry is now about to shut down because the owner, Acrelmator, or Acrel Metal, I think, is now just pulling out and shutting the steel mills down because they're not profitable because they're constantly facing power cuts. They're constantly having issues delivering the stuff to ports to actually export it because of the failure of the rail network. They're having water delivery issues, so they can't do the water washing and cool the steel during that part of the process. So they're pulling out, and they're going to be shutting those down. So that's yet another thing that goes down for South Africa as it continues spiraling. Spiral, spiral down, spiral down. Every once in a while, it gives you this random hope, and then it continues to spiral down, spiral down, spiral down into oblivion. So they're continuing with that process, but it's nothing new at this point. It's still just as bad. It's just not new anymore. That's kind of, I think even South Africans at themselves kind of just consider that their accepted fate at this point. Run over the globe, look around, see if, I don't know, anything springs up into memory that I might be forgetting. But I don't really think. Why do you keep tilting? Stop tilting. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. And if I am, I irresponsibly did not write it down on the sheet. So that's probably going to be it for this time. Nothing else that I need to respond to, at least. So, all right, that's probably going to be it. I've been on for longer than I normally would go. But thank you, everybody who did show up. I will see you all around next time. And I'll try to get back to like regular amounts of videos as well.